Hi, welcome to the Koinned podcast, and we have another great and amazing episode lined up for you. My name is Mitesh Farsani, and my co-host
Caroline Yaboke.
And today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship versus employment. Now, I know this is one of the most controversial topics we have in our households, with our friends, with our teachers, and basically everyone we know. But today we're going to be looking at it in much more detail and appreciate both sides much more than we usually do outside.
Yeah.
What do you think, Caroline?
Yeah, we are going to look at various perspectives, factors, not just one main line, but different perspectives in terms of your social life, work-life balance, in terms of autonomy in decision-making, financial stability. We're going to look at it all. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we can start off immediately, and we're going to start off with probably financial security, because that is one of the most talked about aspect of it all.
Yeah.
So let's say financial security. What do you think?
Yeah, I think financial security, especially in this time and age, is very, very important. You know, COVID-19 taught us that. Yeah, it taught us that you need to be able to, especially people who are like paying rent and everything, who have constant bills to pay every month. Financial security is really, really important. Being able to know that at the end of the month, I have money coming in, I need to be able to pay my bills and all. And I think financial security, I think it's better on the employment side, I think, because you were sure then at the end of every month I'm getting 30,000 from this organization, so I can be able to budget, I can be able to plan this money. On the other hand, in entrepreneurship, when you have a business, a lot of things change. There are a lot of factors, environmental and internal factors, that affect the business. So you can't say that I can constantly make 40,000 every month. It might not be true. You can have a high season, a peak season, and also sometimes it's a bit dry. So I think financial security mostly lies towards the employment side, because your employer has to pay you that amount of money every month. And if they're slashing your salary, they probably tell you beforehand that I'm going to take this amount out of your salary. Yeah.
I sort of tend to disagree with you there, but to some extent agree with you as well. So you see, employment income, yes, it's fixed, right? And you claim that when you're an entrepreneur, your income may not be fixed. I tend to disagree, because if you are an entrepreneur who's been running the business for 2 to 3 years, there are two aspects to it. One is, you know your high seasons and you know your low seasons.
Yeah.
So you know in January and December I'll be making a lot of money, and in maybe April and May I'll be making the least amount of money I make in the whole year. That means I can budget accordingly. The second thing is contracts. If you've been in this for a long time, especially in the service sector, there are some people you tend to have long-term contracts with. You know that this person, for example, it may not be true in all sectors of retail, but for service sector, you know that this customer, I have a 2-year contract with them, whether it's November or whether it's January. Me, I know I'll get, say, 20,000 from him or 100,000 from them.
Yeah.
And there's that kind of security.
Yeah.
I think the only, this is why it's always the primary argument of all parents when it comes to entrepreneurship and employment, is that there is a low level of financial security. But that's only when you're really, really starting out, probably your first 6 months or your first year. But after that, there is a whole lot of stability, because there is so many, even when you're employed, your employer has that stability. When you're in a big company, you're still going to be paid your salary apart from the profit you're going to gain as well. So the financial security aspect is probably a little overplayed. Maybe the only valid time when that one is applicable is when you're starting out a business. But once you're running through, you have a little more or less security, because again, with employment, you could be fired anytime.
Yeah. I think it goes either way, because just now I was reading about a company called EPROM some time ago. It was a multi-million-dollar company. But then again, it fell in a matter of months. All these factors that we're talking about, embezzlement and everything of the sort. But again, just as you have said, you can also be fired anytime.
Exactly.
As much as your business can collapse at any time, you can also be fired at any time, or your company can fall. your company where you work can fall anytime. So I think it really goes either way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually that brings us to our next argumentative point that we usually listen to from friends and family: job security.
Yeah.
People claim that there is a greater job security on employment, but you can technically never be fired off your own business. So which one has the greater job stability?
Yeah. You can be fired out of your own company. It can happen.
Yes, we've had the Silicon Valley startups that fall through that, of course.
Yeah. But it's not common that you can actually be kicked out of your own company. So I think job security is not a very good argument.
Yeah, and job security is very arbitrary. You can be, the smartest person in your company and you can still be fired.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
true.
That would be because probably they changed their business style and now you have to go look for a new job.
Yeah.
Probably the best thing about it is because you're very smart, you're going to get your next job quite easily.
Yeah.
And so there is that aspect of job security. But in terms of staying at the same company, people like to bounce around to get increase in pays, right?
Yeah, especially people of our time and age. We don't stick to one thing.
Exactly.
We move on as fast as, And I think what you have said really makes sense. And I think this one, honestly, I will be biased to the side of business. I was on the other side, but right now I feel like I'm shifting because I know someone who there was a retrenchment they were working in a very big NGO and, they lost their job. And, till date, it has been a struggle. But this person is brilliant and has all this like 15 years experience, but I feel like if they had started out their own company, they will be at a better place right now than struggling right now.
Yeah.
And I think it also brings out the aspect of risk, just as we were talking about companies from failing and everything collapsing. The aspect of risk, I feel like higher risk is on the part of businesses, but higher risk, higher reward.
Yeah, definitely. And now that you talk about risk, we can move into that. There is relatively low risk when it comes to employment, but the level of risk varies from business to business when you're an entrepreneur. Your business could face an extra KRA measure tomorrow.
Yeah.
Your business, the government of Kenya might decide tomorrow to ban plastic bags.
Yeah.
We know how that went for some of the greatest plastic manufacturers across.
Yeah.
I actually had a friend whose father used to make these plastic bags, but they were very brilliant and they managed to restructure the whole business in a span of 3 months and they continued making plastics, just not plastic bags. So there is that risk in that. But if you're employed in such a business, that means you're directly affected with the same level of risk. I mean, if you're working as a plastic bag manufacturer and they banned plastic, you still face a level of risk.
Yeah, but the fact is you won't be affected like the owner of the company. They invested money, they did everything. But I think these risks, just as we talked about in other episodes, they can be dealt with. They can be reduced. You can insure your company, you see. You can have information, There are things that can help you reduce this risk even as you're getting into business so that it doesn't have to be a very high risk. And just as I said, as I was starting, higher risk, higher reward. Yeah. So it's all about, are you willing to take that risk to make that money you want to make, If you're not, just go into employment.
And it's good to know that different industries have different levels of risk.
Truly.
You can't, a supermarket probably has higher risk because of the amount of stocks they need to keep.
Yeah.
But maybe a sofa business might have a relatively low of risk if you're making custom-made furniture, for example.
Yeah.
So there is that. But let me jump into something different from there. Let's talk about the level of effort you need to put on your business. When you are a startup, this is the most conversed topic about conversed argument point in terms of the youth. The amount of effort you put in a startup is always going to be much, much, much more than you're going to put in your employment. How true do you agree?
I think that is very true. When you're employed, I think you just need to make your 8 to 5, and if you're doing something which is monotonous, repetitive, it's just same thing every day, wake up, amka 6 and panda gari, you're at work by 9, Evo, and it is just like that almost every day. But when you're starting, you have a startup. For example, I have a food business. I need to wake up at 5, be in the soko by 5. I need to come back from the soko, prepare that food, transport it to where it needs to be sold, stand there or employ someone to stand there, to sell that food the whole day. In the evening, I need to come back for these sufurias and everything, go back and wash them. And it is repetitive every day. You need to put a lot of effort into what you're doing. Because you're trying to jumpstart your business. You're trying to hit, is it that 3-month mark, that your business has survived the first 3 months. You want to do all these things and you want to do them well. And you need to be really hands-on. You feel like you need to really be hands-on, because you don't want someone else to come and then they're low on effort, they're low on everything, and then it collapses. So I feel like it is kind of true. But again, it depends. It depends with the kind of employment you also have. The employment you have can also require you to just wake up at 4 either way.
Yeah.
So it depends. It actually depends. But I think the difference is that at one point you're working on something which is yours, which you're giving yourself completely to something which is going to be yours, and you're going to reap from it probably for the rest of your life or even your future generations. And on the other hand, you're working so hard on someone else's dream, which either way probably earns you good money. Same amount. So I really don't
I'd want to look at it from the other perspective, the employment perspective. There are people who, put in a much high level of effort, even when it comes to employment, because of the position they hold. Let's assume you are appointed the CEO of a large company.
Yeah.
You're still employed, technically. Maybe it's a public listed company. You're still employed. But the level of effort you put will probably be much more than you would put on your own startup, right? And the level of effort is an arbitrary term because, or rather an arbitrary measurement, because for my startup, I may be putting a certain amount of effort, but where I work, I maybe in a different timeline where I'm working, it's so demanding, but it's also so enjoyable, and I'm working on new projects every day.
Challenging every day.
This month I'm working on this. The next month I have to go to say Sudan, and I'm working on another project. There is that kind of aspect as well. So again, the level of effort I'm putting on that is also so much. So you can say that some people tend to put a lower amount of effort on their employment, but that means that doesn't that mean that even when they open their business and they hire people, those people will be putting the same amount of little effort? Just what is needed of them is what they do, not an extra mile. No one likes employees like that. You all want your employees to have a high level of innovation and entrepreneurship and things like that. So I tend to disagree with that argument of the level of effort for that reason, because even when you're working for someone, you should be working with the same mindset that, I'm gaining from this and they are gaining from me. So it's a mutual understanding.
Yeah, I think as a good friend of mine, his name is Mike Matanga, he's a lawyer, he tells me it depends.
Yeah.
That one definitely depends. Depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
And what your startup is about and what you're doing in employment. Yeah. So that one definitely depends.
Let's talk about leisure time and free time you have for yourselves. We can combine them with family time. Which one do you think takes this one when it comes to employment or entrepreneurship?
I think in entrepreneurship, you kind of dictate your schedule, especially a few months or a few years into, having your business. You have, you probably employ managers and everything. I know people who have been mothers who have been able to work from home simply because they started their businesses, before they had kids, and now it's running. So I have time for my children, I have time. I just make calls from home about that tender, about that lorry which is carrying, sand and everything. So I think, again, I think this one, entrepreneurship, takes the day.
Really, because think of it on the early stages. I run my own small business. I know sometimes a client can call me and say, I need this done very urgently. And of course, I'll be pricing them that way for an urgent job. But that means I need to complete it. And that means that would mean sacrificing probably a meetup with friends I was going to. Early stages, that's possible. Employment, you're going to work from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. When you reach home at 5, you're going to be with your kids and family. Maybe Saturday, you're working half day. Sunday, you're not going to work. But as a small business owner, you're going to work on Sunday. You're going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the midnight of nowhere, and you're going to start working because this is needed tomorrow. There's so much pressure.
But you know, in employment, you can even decide to switch off your phone. But that, again, that depends on the kind of work you do.
Yeah, but because it is your business, how willing would you be to switch off your phone?
Yeah.
And
in terms of your business, you just have to sacrifice. You have to be available all the time. But if you're an employee and I tell you, okay, don't call me from Friday, you know.
Yeah, that's my argument. So I think when you're employed, you tend to have more family and free time, leisure time.
I agree.
But when you're actually, you know, when they say when you're a startup owner, you are the owner, you are the worker, you are the person who makes the tea, you are the cleaner, you are everything.
Truly.
And so how are you going to get free time for your family until, of course, it is of a significant level and you have a reasonable number of staff? And I think that's why it's most startup accelerators and financiers, investors, angel investors, all of them say that you should always have a team. You should not go into business alone because you are never going to keep up.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the primary arguments they have for, you know, that. But leisure time and extra time on the other side, how about, I mean, that works with work-life balance, but how about autonomy? You know, when you have your own business, you are able to make your own decisions, you know. If I want my office to have coffee for everyone, I make that decision. If I want my office to look like those high-tech Silicon Valley offices with scooters and all, I have that decision. But in employment, I am stuck in a cubicle office and I can't make any changes. What do you think?
And I think it partly depends on where you are working and the kind of organizational structure that is where you're working. But mostly in business, the autonomy in decision making, just as you have said, is higher. You know, it is very easy for you to make decisions because, especially if you're the one who has started the business and it is yours alone, it is very easy to make decisions and it is fast even. But when you're working somewhere, you know, you are under an organizational structure and culture. You know, there is how things are done here. There is how people relate here. There is how, you know, kuna venye vitu ufanywa huku, you know. You just can't come here and maybe I'm a new employee and I'm feeling like, that can be done better. And then I'm writing proposals every week of things that can be done different, you see. So it's not easy to change things. It's not easy to make decisions that you feel like are best for the company, because ideally there are people who have been there years and years, many years before you, many years after you, and they probably had what they had in mind when they were doing things the way they were doing. So yeah, I think autonomy in decision making is very easy when you're in the side of entrepreneurship, but again, it can be easy in the side of employment, depending on where you work.
Absolutely. And nowadays we have a new trend in working where workers are given more independence when they work, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it a lot in first world countries. We'll probably see it much later in Kenya. But it's starting to take some traction where there is a greater flexibility for workers. So I think that sort of autonomy is coming to employment as well, in terms of, you know, sometimes your boss will allow you to work from home. Your boss can decide, you know, there's that autonomy of, okay, that maybe I work in a place that has many branches, and since I'm doing office work today, I can sit in this branch, and tomorrow I can go to that branch.
To the extent you can even make your own hours. You can just decide that what they need at the end of the week is this deliverable. So whether you do it all in one day, at the end of the week have this, you know, and even to the extent that you can even dress the way you want nowadays. I think with the youth nowadays, a lot of changes have come for them, older people too, the bloomers and everything, to accommodate this younger generation and their innovation and their, you know, their different way of doing things. So I think that flexibility has come in.
It's coming in slowly, eventually. And, you know, especially for people probably in the creative industry, for someone like, say, I have employed, say, photographers for my marketing startup, and I tell them, you need to go here to take photos. Just discuss with the client what day you want to go. So do you want to go on a Monday? Do you want to go Friday? So long as it's done by the end of this week, I'm good. You're good. So long as you have edited and sent me the pictures by the end of the week, you do them when you want. I don't really need to see you in my office physically. So autonomy is starting to fall into place for employment, but of course it's not going to be the same as it is for your business, you know, for your own business. Let's look into the aspect of growth, your personal growth, your professional growth, career-wise, personal life-wise, spiritual-wise, probably, which one wins?
Again, it depends.
The silence.
Again, it depends. You know, I was thinking earlier, that entrepreneurship, there is more growth there, because when you're an entrepreneur, basically you're in charge of almost everything, and you're taking on a lot. You're taking on the growth of your company. And as your company grows, you also grow, you know. You grow in terms of how you think, you know, you're thinking scalability, you're thinking a lot of things in terms of your business. How can I improve processes? How can I do this? How can I become even a better leader in terms of how I'm handling my staff? How can I do better marketing? Or, you know, in terms of just growth, as much as you're having people help you, you're also thinking, you're also, you know, and even as much as you're having all these other functions of management being run by other people, they're also teaching you, you know, you're also learning from them, you see. So there is that aspect of when you're doing your own business, you're doing a lot of varied things to make what you're doing work, and you're also thinking in terms of a large scale, so you're growing in that aspect.
When I'll become a multinational one day, you're manifesting.
Yes, you're manifesting and you're working towards it. So even you're growing into that personality, you know, that thing for, you know, just imagine what you want to, the way you are telling me, imagine that big stage, act like it right now, you know, slowly and slowly. So it brings about that change. But I can say in employment you can also grow in terms of, for example, someone like Vusi. I don't even know Vusi. He's just this big shot, you know, in corporate and everything. And he was talking about taking on big projects early in your career. So you can walk into a space where they can actually give young people, or people like you, however old you are, the opportunity to take on big projects, and growth can come about by that. But I can't really compare. I feel like in entrepreneurship the growth is much more phenomenal, because you need to learn a lot, you need to think, you need to, you know, you need to be out there.
Yeah, well, I tend to think it's a more balanced thing. In terms of entrepreneurship, there's going to be that aspect where you're growing in all areas, and you're going to be growing in terms of your stress management, because you'll be running 100 things at once. You're going to be controlling your anger, you're going to be doing this. But it's the same in employment, because I'm sure, you know, someone like Peter Ndegwa probably started out as a clerk somewhere, or in a very low level job. I know that when you whoever works in a bank, the guys, if you are a CEO of a bank, you must have once worked as a teller.
Yeah, truly.
So you cannot become CEO without having worked at tellers at the base level. And so that is clear growth.
Yeah,
so
truly.
You've grown from a simple bank teller to the CEO of the bank.
Yeah.
It could be the same bank or any other bank, but that's still growth.
Yeah.
And
even in terms of, I think, apprenticeship, like, for example, I want to be a contractor one day. So I have to work under contracting, you know, firm, like, for example, Laxman by, go there, do an internship, get experience for like 2-3 years, you know, and maybe go branch out now and do my own business.
Exactly.
Yeah. So employment provides opportunity for growth in terms of maybe the industry that you want to get into, or even as a person, because of the skills that they impart to you, you know, yeah.
Absolutely. Let's look at it in an external perspective. I mean, inflation, economy, and taxes, this aspect. Who do you think is most affected when something bad happens to the economy, inflation is on the rise, or, you know, my taxes grew? Personally, I would believe that both the employer and the employee would be in the same stage. If inflation went up, that means me as a business owner, my things are going to get expensive. If I was employed, then that means I would be able to buy less things with the money I get. If it was taxes, if I was an employee and my employer starts getting taxed more, that means I will probably not see a rise in my income for the next, say, 2 years. But if I was a business owner and my taxes rose, that would mean my personal disposable income also falls. So in that sense, who do you think will take this one?
Just as you have said, it like balances out.
Yeah.
It affects everyone.
Everyone, absolutely. There's no fixed saying about external influences. If it's going to affect the employee, it's going to affect the employee.
But I think most people think that, when you're doing business, especially if you're, it's just the small businesses, piki there and, small kibandaski there, you won't get taxed. Someone getting, their pay from their employer every month. They feel like hiyo pesa inakuja yote ikiwa yote. Inakuja direct kwa account yangu. So I'm not really getting taxed. So I think that is how most people see it. But you need to see it, as you have said,
in a
larger scale, in a bigger picture, because either way you're going to pay more tax.
Absolutely.
Petroli kipanda, you'll pay more fare. Kila kitu. When inflation is there, it affects everyone. When taxes go up, it affects everyone.
I think so. I mean, employment or entrepreneurship, it's always going to be a personal choice. There are people that will prefer not taking that large risk and instead just getting employed, which is not wrong. You can absolutely make a huge life from employment. You can become CEO, you could become CFO, you could become one of the world's most renowned, consultant. Alternatively, you could be having your own business and grow in the same aspect. I think when it comes to the argument of employment versus entrepreneurship, it's more of a personal choice and your personal motivation of where you see yourself in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And when you retire, of course. So, yeah, I think it's more of a personal character trait, and there is no right decision. It's not that entrepreneurship is right and employment is wrong, because even when you're an entrepreneur, you'll end up employing people. Yeah.
I think just as you have said, either way works. I was looking at LinkedIn the other day, and LinkedIn can give you pressure. So I saw this man, he has 9 jobs, 9 big titles, sitting on big boards and everything. So this is basically an employee, an employee of 9 different companies, and I know people who are also director of 4 different companies. And, employment works for them, and they are living their best life. They're living their best life, And there are people who have also gone into entrepreneurship and they've also succeeded. So I think either way.
It's about your character.
Truly.
That's all we have for this episode, I think. The debate about entrepreneurship and employment is very wide. It spans across various things, various interests, people's personal beliefs. And we hope you enjoyed. We hope we've helped you make a decision, of course, to our viewers.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening into The Koinned. Tune in next week.
Yeah. Thank you.